What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another YouTube video. It's your boy Kevin, and we're talking about Anji Mito today, the dancing demon over here in Guilty Gear Strive. The original character I picked up in the game before I ended up making the switch over to Leo, but that does not mean Anji's bad. This character gets downplayed so much, and I don't understand why. So I'm going to cover today the option he has, what makes him good, what makes him bad, kind of what he struggles with, the overall game plan, and then get into the action. So Anji, very simple character conceptually. You're gonna live and you're gonna die by your ability to read your opponent, pick up on their patterns, and adapt to their gameplay. Your ability to do that dictates your victory. If you cannot do that, or if your opponent has an easier time reading you than you can read them, you're going to struggle. Reason being, Anji's normals, they're kinda okay. He has some solid ones, and he can do some good stuff with his normals, can jail a lot of things, can enforce a lot of solid pressure. But they're just albeit all right buttons, and a fair amount of them tend to be generally a little slower than you would imagine that they're going to be. His P here, both of his Ps, we're gonna talk about his 5P and his 2P, and his jumping P, all of his punch attacks, okay? All of Anji's little Ps, don't quote me on that, Anji's little Ps, okay? These are all great anti-mash tools and kind of just vibe checks at any point where you're curious if you're in danger and you feel like the solution to get out of danger is to just start mashing. P is going to be your go-to. 5P, 2P, they both can chain, if I'm not mistaken, into 6P, which is going to be a very, very solid anti-air. You also have amazing head invulnerability, okay? If there's one person who doesn't have head invulnerability, it's your boy. You know what I'm saying? But Anji has extreme head invulnerability when he does this move. It's actually great because it lets him evade a lot of normals which he normally wouldn't be able to evade. See what I did there? That's bars. A lot of like far-reaching normals where characters are extending their hitbox out. If those attacks hit generally high on a character's hitbox, Anji might be able to 6P his way out of them, and being able to either connect 2P into this or 5P into this is great just to discourage people from pressing on you and getting them to stop mashing on you. 6P tends to generally be a better like anti-air or air covering or air-to-air tool. If you're backing away, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as an advancing air normal. Kind of good just to get away from people and get them off of you, discourage people trying to air throw you and what have it. But generally all of these are just getting people off of your back, discouraging them from mashing or mashing out yourself, and they chain into other moves to enforce Dale pressure, which we're going to cover a little bit later. But they're all generally relatively good buttons. His kick, his 5K, it's a pretty good neutral tool. For its range, you're going to use this a lot more than you're going to want to use his 5HS. Even though the problem with this has been fixed, this was generally a worse button before Anji's most recent patch, or the differences of which we're going to cover today, and just pretend that old version of Anji didn't exist. So this is a better button now in neutral, but 5K still very serviceable, able to cancel it into other things, able to, you know, try to enforce what you want. It's a decent button to try to tick off of, but it's generally for higher level characters, higher level players. They're going to be able to react to a stagger like this. Your 2K is pretty solid as well for the same thing. 2K dust mix up, obviously the classic dust mix up. Hit them with a cheeky low and then go for full charge of dust. Really good. His dust on its own, it's kind of whatever. You don't really get much off of not doing the full charge version. Of course, the full charge version could net you into some big boy damage. And I don't even think that's the most optimal dust combo route that you can get. That's just the one that I do because it's generally easy for me to hit. Still a solid 180. You can definitely find more routes online. I'll drop combo videos at some point later on where I'll go over higher damage options, but they are there. But this move on its own, kind of whatever. You're not really like enforcing anything, you know. It's pretty slow for what it is. You just get a little bit, what is that, 44 damage? It's kind of whatever. Ideally, if you're going for dust, you're trying to hit the full charge version. 2D is really good because 2D is super evasive. Soul doesn't have a projectile, unfortunately, but this move, you can tell just how it low profiles. I'll post a clip of him kind of like ducking under a Kai projectile. This is really good to kind of counter zone. Anji's got a lot of good counter zoning tools, and when we get into talking about counter zoning further on in the video, 2D is going to be one of the ones you're going to want to keep note of. His slash, generally good. This one's like a solid poke. Doesn't really confirm into anything on its own, but if you can chain it, of course, like everybody else, into his heavy slash, get big damage. And you can do that from the far version also, if you're at the right range. Though the close version is going to be the preferred one to really, I did a horrible job of that combo there. Hold on. Anyway, we'll do combos later. I'm getting distracted because he's a fun character and I want to do his combos. What other buttons am I missing that are really important? 6HS, great approach tool. On its own, well, let me not mistake that. It's not a great approach tool. It's a great approach tool, okay, with big quotation marks around it, because you move forward, you advance on your opponent quite a lot when you do this. And all of the moves in the attack hit at different ranges. So one of them hits low, one of them hits high, one of them hits mid, in that order. Not low, overhead, mid, okay? Just one of them hits low, one of them hits higher, and one of them hits around mid-range on the body. They're all mid, okay? Don't get this is not some overall mix-up tool. If they did do that, I would literally call Arc System Works myself and just hand them my money and say thank you for giving them that. But these are just going to be good mids. It's not the best button to meaty with unless you're meeting at distance. I do like to sometimes, if I'm scared of what my opponent's going to do on wake up, kind of throw this out a little farther away so that I'm not necessarily in range for like wake up throw or something. But this move is deceptively punishable. You can get really comfortable with Anji doing this because especially at lower to intermediate level, people are just kind of going to hold this button. Higher level players will be able to identify that you're abusing that button, poke you out of it, and then get counter hit confirms off of you. So you want to be careful just throwing this out in the wild, but you do want to throw this out because it does a great job of enforcing pressure. If we combine it with something like the 2P that we were doing before, okay, if we hit him 2 times in the P with our 2P, essentially just go 2P into 6HS. This jails if they're trying to mash. They could, you gotta be careful with your execution so that you don't get Fujin, but this ideally jails if they're not trying to dragon punch you. Most times they're trying to press anything else. They're gonna get clipped out for doing that with this little combination here. So you can kind of vibe check that it's your turn and then enforce off of it. I wouldn't let them get that full distance away. I'd ideally try to be somewhat close to do it. To really enforce it, the farther away you start pushing them with your P attacks, the easier of a time they're going to have. They can also backdash. If you do this at a really far range and then try to enforce, they can backdash away from it, which of course you can chase, and that's when we start getting back into the read mindset. But everything Anji's going to do is going to be conditioning your opponent, kind of trying to take advantage of their unfamiliarity with how Anji works when it comes to like the little minute exchanges. And the problem with Guilty Gear is that people who like Guilty Gear games usually know all of the little details, and you have to try to trick them anyway. That's going to be the hard part. But out of all of his normals, I think that's about everything. Two heavy slash isn't really good on its own. Like, I wouldn't just start throwing this out. It's really solid for combos, and it's good to jail things also. If I'm not mistaken, I think a close slash into 2S jails, and you can get pretty good damage off of getting a 2. Let me see if I can land one of these here for you. Okay, you get some pretty good damage off of that move hitting. So if you can get somebody to fall for it, that's pretty solid. And in the corner, you can, let me see. No, that's not what I want. They get hit with this. Big damage also, okay? So catching them with that, ideally anywhere from like mid-range with their back to the wall to their back all the way up against the wall can net you really, really high damage for Anji. But that move on its own, dog water, okay? And unless you're a dog and you like to lap up dog water, don't just throw this out. That'd be the worst way to use it. You're either going to confirm into combos, or you're then going to use it for combo extension, or you're going to jail it off of close slash. Outside of that, be careful, okay? Special moves for Anji are all about dancing all over your opponents, all right? Just all over your opponent's offense and not giving a flying, okay? That's mostly the discouraging you're going to be doing with this. Anji has a great ability to frustrate your opponent by ignoring 90% of their offense by using any of his Fujin routes. He's got 3 of them. One of them has a bunch of variations that chart off of. I'm going to start with the parry. So if we do 2, 3, 6 kick, okay, we get our basic parry route. So I'm gonna go ahead and record Soul using a nice punishable button here. Let's use, sorry, I forget Soul's buttons because I don't play Soul because I'm not a weeb like the rest of you, okay? I play Anji like a solid American, all right? I don't care that he's Japanese. So if your opponent uses a button that's punishable, like this one from Soul, we're gonna get nice counter hit, and nice counter hit is gonna give us big damage. He's either gonna have to waste burst to pop out of that, in which case if we bait burst, he's dead and you know this, or he's just going to have to hold that damage where we can get into some big damage. We already showed you some of the potential damage that Anji can do. He doesn't have the beefiest damage in the game, but boy, can this man hit hard, okay? Talk about having 6-packs abs. This man will hit you with 6 jabs until you die. I'm trying to be too funny. Okay. Essentially, you could just counter hit, get a big punish going, start enforcing your pressure. If you don't have meter to Roman cancel, you still get a good amount just from that punish. That's still pretty good. You can enforce Oki. I usually like to either follow that up by continuing to chase my opponent down and hope that they're pressing something on wake up, which isn't, I wouldn't always recommend, but it's one of the options I personally like to go for. Or get the knockdown, throw out a free butterfly, which we'll talk about in a second, and then use that to cover my approach in. Butterfly is also really good, but we'll talk about that in a little bit later. So that's going to be the classic parry route. What you want to note, he has 2 other routes. One of them, if you use the slash version of the move, is almost going to be like a pseudo DP, but it's not a DP. It's very important that you understand that. But it will trade with a lot of things in the air, especially because it's also a parry up until the move comes out. One thing you want to keep in mind when you parry moves, even if you're not doing the straight parry version, okay, quote unquote, with the kick, any one of his Fujin moves on startup that gets parried will just end in this animation. It's the same one that he recovers in if you just do the K version and nothing happens, okay? So if you do the aerial version and you don't mistime it like I just did, Jesus, you'll still go here, which means if you end up in this situation, we try it again. If you end up in the situation, get your punish, go back to that punish mind game. You also have a horizontal version with your heavy slash that will cancel into this move, and this is the version of it that's going to have a couple of different variations that we can work off of. And again, if it parries, same thing with the other versions, we're going to go straight into our punish. If you manage to go far enough to land the heavy slash version, we start coming up with different options, right? We're going to have generally 4 here that we can go for. We can either do this and then do this projectile version, right? This is going to be more of like a vibe check one. So essentially, let's say your opponent is trying to go ahead and mash out. This is going to protect us from that ideally. There's a caveat that I'll cover in a second. We have a low version, which is going to be your safest option, not your safe option, your safest option, okay? Some people can still punish this, but ideally, if the move gets blocked and you don't know what to do, the low is going to be your best bet to get out of jail for free. A lot of times, opponents, even people who can punish it, won't recognize that they should punish it, and they'll miss that opportunity. We also have our kick version, which is going to give us this dash. This dash gives us some more strike throw pressure. You can either try to throw your opponent straight out of it, which is what I like to do, or challenge them with the meaty if you don't mess up your timing. Just keep in mind, again, that by doing this, you are moving yourself closer to your opponent. It's also very easy to poke you out of that version of it. So if you go to dash, if they press anything, you'll get interrupted. And then you have your heavy slash version, which is going to be this overhead. And the overhead can lead into big damage depending on where it hits and how it hits and what you do with it. But it's also super punishable, way more than the low version is. So you can get away with this a lot. You're not really going to get away with this as often, right? Now I'm going to play a clip for you guys real quick, because the big caveat with this move is that technically every version of it can be interruptible. The punch, kick, and heavy slash versions all can be dragon punched out of. And if any of them are delayed at all, they can super be dragon punched out of. So even the low, if you choose to delay it, which you can do, can be dragon punched out of, right? Talking about the delay, you can definitely be a little cheeky. So this is normally how fast you would rip the move out. You can definitely wait a second, and you can wait a long second. Look at this. Right? That's quite a while. A lot of times, this here will make your opponent think you're giving up your turn, and they will try to press on you. And if they do press on you, you go back in, and you do what you got to do to get them back, okay? But you could delay technically all of them, but then you are going to be open to those punishes. Soul, Kai, Chip, and Leo are going to be the 4 characters in the game that can DP you out of most of those options. That alone makes them bad matchups for you. You want to keep that in mind. Now, you can, of course, still get your stuff going because everything you're doing is based on your ability to adapt and read your opponent. But they can shut down a lot of that game if they're stubborn enough to continuously try to DP. And remember that with Leo also, that his DP is a flash kick input. So he can have that cooked and ready to go at any point. You're not even chancing that he's possibly going to mess it up or mistime it. He's going to hit up. Okay, not up. Let me not be disrespectful to the community. He's going to hit 8 heavy slash and then just rip, roar, and beat you out of whatever the hell you were trying to do. So you want to keep that in mind so you don't overabuse that option. One of the other things that's notable with Fujin is that you don't have to hit this to get your other options. That was pre-pack Anji, if that's what you're familiar with. You can whiff moves and still cancel into whatever you want, okay? That changes things a lot. Let's say we're like in a little zoning war, okay? And our opponent's trying to discourage us from getting close. If we find a gap in that projectile offense in general, we can close that gap very fast. And once we're here, we're a threat again, okay? So it's important to note that these moves can be used like this. You can also get knocked down, let's say, or like because of delay, you can hit people with straight overheads if you were to do something like this. Check them for crouch blocking on wake up. You can go for an overhead faster than they would expect it, even though I wouldn't recommend that necessarily being the route you go for. Oh my god. You get what I did. There was a potential to do combos there. You get it, right? You get it? We get it? Okay. I don't want to waste your time trying to do combos for 80 minutes. But a lot of good stuff. We also have, of course, the 236 P, which is going to be the butterfly. Butterfly's great. It's guaranteed off of any throw. So you get a throw, butterfly's free. You can do that whenever you want. You get a back throw, butterfly's free. And you can also fit in throws in a lot of good places, okay? You do this, you dash, you throw them. You can do this, cancel them into twirl, and throw them. The second any of those connect, you get free butterfly, you get free pressure. You can even do butterfly, and then literally throw them in between that, just because they're trying to block the second one, and then you get another free throw. And then you know what happens? Watch this, right? We get we land the throw, we throw out butterfly, they block butterfly, we land a throw. Now they're getting looted. Now they're worried about it, and then they get comboed into combos that better Anji players would hit if they weren't me, okay? But you can consistently keep them wrapped up in that. It's also great for counter zoning because it will trade with projectiles. It's not the best multi-hitting projectiles. Don't care about it. But if it does trade, it still will go over the projectile on the second hit. So even if you have a multi-hitting one, a lot of times it'll collide with the butterfly. The butterfly will then move over the moves. You'll block it. Sometimes the opponent will just stand there and get hit by butterfly. It's great for that. And of course, in counter zoning, again, the 2D going to get under a lot of projectiles. So the combination of these two are really good to like pester in a counter zoning war. So you're not getting hit, you're throwing something back. And once it's covered, you're in for pressure again. Okay? The second they stop to respect this, you follow it, and now you're back in, and you go back into Anji pressure, and you do what you've got to do. 2K, 2D, Fujin, dash, pressure, okay? Another throw opportunity thing. Oh, you want to block it? No, another throw opportunity. Cool. Now we're getting in those cheeks. Don't tell my mom. Okay, lots of cool stuff you could do there. We've got air normals. Ideally, slash is going to be your most versatile one. If you're not sure what to do in the air, this is your button. Heavy slash is going to be your best if you're approaching. The hitbox on this is incredible. You do want to be careful, again, abusing it because it's very easy for people to counter you in the air. That's when you want to start covering yourself with this. Your kick is very good. Generally, if you're trying to air, with the intention to air to air. You're going to do it with kick. If you air to air somebody with a heavy slash, it'll knock them down. You won't get much off of it, but you'll be able to convert off of the kick or the slash. And your dust is very deceptive, because if you look, see how it pushes Anji back? And now we have mind games. Look, so you can like fake a little cross up, hit your opponent on that side. It's very cheeky. Easy. You just wanted to lay it a little closer to the point I was trying to make. And I made that point by not being able to do it myself. It's also really good for some combo conversion routes if you're doing something like this. That dust will also be very solid because it wall bounces if it hits in the air. I'll show you again one more time, just in case you were confused as to what I was talking about. Wall bounce, combo. Let's start talking about his supers, okay? You've got two. First one's going to be this one here. If you're not confirming, generally this is not the super that you're going to use. You don't really use supers with Anji too much because you're saving a lot of your attention to either protect yourself when your read is incorrect. So let's say I go for the overhead, my opponent blocks it. I'm like, oh, I'm dumb. My opponent made the read. I'm going to protect myself and RC to just get out of that bad situation, try to force a turn again. Or you're going to use it, if you're going to use it for a special, most likely for the parry. This parry is amazing. It is as obnoxious to deal with as the twirl is, okay? Both the twirl and the parry are only susceptible to throws and bursts. They will literally go through anything else, okay? So to make my point, I'm just gonna record Soul running up to me and throwing, okay? And when he does that, I'm gonna try to twirl. I get thrown. You see, it's a punish, okay? If I go to do my super, so let's record him again. He throws me right out of it. He doesn't care, okay? I'll show you again just in case you think I timed it wrong. Throws me out of it. He doesn't care, okay? Same for if he bursts. Doesn't care. You also know what that means? He gets full bar. If you didn't know, if you burst and you just straight up burst and your opponent gets hit, you get full meter. So in this situation, if your opponent wants, while you're both trying to make reads on each other, and you do this, and they burst, they get full bar, okay? They trade their burst for it, but they have the ability to do that. In that same aspect, you try to super, you don't stop that, okay? So you want to note that. But you will stop lows, you will stop anything that's not a burst or a throw, and that is very obnoxious for your opponents to deal with. And again, if they do go to hit you, right, you get nice. And if you want to be crazy, you can even Roman cancel that and start turning it into more damage, okay? And if you do that in the corner, you can destroy, like if you're like mid-screen when it happens, closer to the corner, oh, you could destroy somebody for 2 of those bars. You already saw 250 damage, and I didn't get to finish the combo because I wasn't in the corner. I don't even know the corner finishing route, okay? Because I hardly ever spend the 2 bars on that, but you can just destroy somebody with doing that. Mind you, also, Anji, pretty solid damage. Also, y'all see that 6-pack? Boy's got some guts, okay? This man can pretty much absorb a lot of damage when he gets low health. So you'll have some good opportunities to kind of live again. You're an annoying character to finish off, but your weakness is going to be that you have limited mobility. You're not the fastest character in the game. You can get out-zoned pretty hard, and while you have counter-zoning tools, they're limited. You have the butterfly, which doesn't go full screen, so you're not winning a projectile war from this distance, okay? The danger, you know. You're not winning a projectile war from this distance. Even from here, it doesn't connect, okay? And 2D, while it's getting you under things, isn't moving you forward, and anything that's moving you forward is you basically having to approach honestly. Even your ability to twirl through things will last for that hit, and the second you armor through that projectile and they follow up with something else, you can get murked pretty bad. So you want to be cautious about how you approach. Just because you have counter zoning tools doesn't mean they're the best in the game. You still pretty much have to manage your space, of course, try to close that gap, and once you're mid to close range, you're really operating within the realm that you want to be in to start making those reads. But you have to be adaptive. Again, know about little things like being able to jail this or being able to jail this, or how to chase your opponents if they know how to get out of it. how to use a situation like this, like 2K2B into Fujin to enforce more pressure, and how to dash up again if you want the throw, so you stop whiffing it like I did, or how to create mix-up opportunities off of it. You could go like low, get your Oki, go low again, they get caught, and then you go into more pressure, you get your butterfly out, they're blocking that, you enforce your throw, you do this, you twirl, they're waiting for Fujin option, you throw them instead, you bait a DP, you punish the DP with his dust, you go into big, hardcore, beefy dust boy damage because they're stupid and they challenged you when you're better than them and you're Anji Mito and you're sexy and they're ugly. You know what I'm saying? You get the point. That's the energy that Anji gives you when you play and you succeed with him. He has a lot of solid stuff. I'm gonna cover more with him in a couple of future videos coming up, a couple of Tech Tuesdays, maybe some Tech Thursdays, depending on the schedule. We'll see. If you have questions for me, leave them down in the comment section down below. I'd like to answer as many of them as I can. And stay tuned for some more tips on how to succeed at Guilty Gear with me. If you like the video, give it a like, follow me on Twitch, and tune in if you'd like to play me live. I'll be playing at least one day a week of Strive. I've been mixing it up a little bit over on the channel, but we're still getting our Strive in. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. See you then.